very early Sunday morning.
And dark.
Still dark.
Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance.
The stone has been moved.
The door of the tomb was gaping open.
The tomb had been disturbed.
So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved.
She ran out of the garden.
She ran into the city.
She ran up the street.
Until she came to the house where Peter and John were staying.
She stood a moment. She caught her breath, and then she said,
They have taken the Lord out of the tomb. We don't know where they have put him.
the body's been stolen.
It's gone.
Where could it be?
So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first.
They ran.
They ran as fast as they could.
And John, then Peter.
John bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in.
He was cautious.
He leaned into the tomb to see where the body had been.
But all he saw were the strips of linen wrappings lying there on the cold slab.
The body was gone.
But the wrappings were left where they had been.
Then Simon Peter, who was behind him, arrived and went into the tomb.
Peter burst into the tomb.
No stopping him.
Peter saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the burial cloth that had been around Jesus' head.
Yes, the cloth that had been around Jesus' head.
This cloth was folded up by itself, separate from the linen.
Folded up.
Separate from the rest of the wrappings.
It was neatly folded by itself.
Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead.
They believed.
Did they believe because the tomb was empty?
No.
Did they believe because of angels?
No.
Did they believe because of the grave wrappings?
Yes. The position of the grave wrappings convinced them that this was no grave robbery.
No hurry to take him the body for some unknown reason.
The grave wrappings were intact.
They were still coiled where his body had been.
Peter believed.
John believed.
And they were amazed.
Then the disciples went to their homes, but Mary stood outside the tomb crying.
She wept. She shed tears of she wept.
She shed tears of grief.
Tears of sorrow.
Tears of unbelief.
As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot.
One at the head.
The other at the foot.
The angels sat one at each side.
They asked her, Woman, why are you crying?
Why are you crying?
Why are you crying?
Why are you crying?
They have taken away my Lord, she said, and I don't know where they have put him.
They've stolen the body.
Someone has stolen his body.
Someone has taken him away.
At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know who it was. Woman, he said, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?
Thinking he was the gardener, she said.
She supposed he was the gardener.
She didn't recognize him at all.
Thinking it was the gardener, she said, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him.
Tell me.
Please tell me.
And I will get him.
Jesus said to her, Mary.
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 She turned toward him and cried out in Arabic, Rabboni, which means teacher.
Rabboni.
Rabbi.
Teacher.
Jesus said, Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet returned to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am returning to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God.
Then Mary Magdalene went to the disciples.
Did she run this time?
Did she walk?
Did she hurry?
Or did she take her time thinking over the wonder of this wonderful news?
Then Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news. I have seen the Lord. And she told them that these were the things he had said to her.
I have seen the Lord.
I have seen the Lord, she said.
Of all the disciples,
Of all the apostles,
Of all his followers of note and renown,
Mary Magdalene received the blessing.
to be the very first.
to say the words,
I have seen him.
I have seen Jesus.
I have seen the Lord.
And what I love about that is that even in Scripture we see different versions of the telling because different eyewitnesses experience things differently, and so that's a neat way to hear that story. I was originally going to preach, and I have the sermon ready, regarding specifically John, but I feel compelled, for whatever reason, to preach again the sermon that I preached on the sunrise service. So I think I'll just save John for next week, and then I don't have to get another one. I want, for whatever reason, to share this with this crowd. And for those of you who were at the sunrise service, then maybe you'll get something else from it. Maybe the Lord will continue to speak. I believe he has. So I wanted to read briefly another account of this morning, found in Matthew 28, 1 through 10. It says, after the Sabbath, as the first light of the new week dawned, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to keep vigil at the tomb. Suddenly the earth reeled and rocked under their feet as God's angel came down from heaven, came right up to where they were standing. He rolled back the stone and then sat on it. Shafts of lightning blazed from him. His garments shimmered snow white. The guards at the tomb were scared to death. They were so frightened they couldn't move. The angel spoke to the woman, "There is nothing to fear here. I know you're looking for Jesus, the one they nailed to the cross. He is not here. He was raised just as he said. Come and look at the place where he was placed. Now get on your way quickly and tell his disciples he is risen from the dead. He is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there." That's the message. The women, deep in wonder and full of joy, lost no time in leaving the tomb. They ran to tell the disciples. Then Jesus met them, stopping them in their tracks. "Good morning," he said. They fell to their knees, embraced his feet, and worshiped him. Jesus said, "You're holding on to me for dear life. Don't be frightened like that. Go tell my brothers that they are to go to Galilee and that I'll meet them there." And this too is the word of God for the people of God. I've mentioned in the past in other sermons and maybe lessons or for Bible study, as it is a big part of my story, that particularly as a teenager, I struggled with anxiety. I had anxiety. And I don't mean anxiety in the experiencing stress or simple worries, oh my goodness, is Ernest going to remember to come in at that point? I don't mean that kind of stress, or, okay, sorry, I had to. Or I'm super scared or nervous about my math test, or I don't mean that kind of stress. I mean an irrational, overwhelming, and anxiety, a stress, a fear that is disproportionate to the situation at hand. The adrenaline and emotions that accompany bouts of anxiety are the equivalent, say, if you are about to be devoured by an alligator, right? Your adrenaline kicks in, like these fear, these emotions, these things happen in your body. But when you have anxiety, they happen while you're watching TV. Like, they're disproportionate, they're irrational, they don't make sense. And so it's a debilitating fear for no apparent reason that can turn into a feeling of dying, for lack of a better word, right? Painful. And so I know in a heightened way about fear. And perhaps it didn't help, and this may be an excuse, but that I was raised by overprotective Puerto Ricans, right? It's definitely a family thing, I think, though I know lots of like Puerto Rican families that were like that. Maybe it's cultural, I don't know. I'll ask Miriam later if she's overprotective, but she, I don't know. If you've ever watched or read the books or watched the show or the movie, A Series of Unfortunate Events, Aunt Josephine reminds me of my family. Aunt Josephine became the guardian of the Baudelaire orphans. And when the Baudelaire orphans came to stay with Aunt Josephine, while she was showing them their new place where they were going to be staying, you could see she explains to them why everything is terribly dangerous, right? Klaus, who's the boy, asks her, why the cans are there, and Josephine replies that they are naturally for burglars. She explained that she doesn't have doorknobs because, they can shatter into a million pieces and hit one's eye, right? Or that she doesn't have doormats because you could accidentally trip on one and, break your neck. Or she doesn't use her stove because it can potentially suddenly burst into flames. And she also doesn't have a telephone because it can electrocute someone. Her fears range from burglary to her biggest fear is that of realtors. So my family perhaps wasn't quite that bad, but they typically would jump to the worst case scenario. So I was presumably, potentially kidnapped a million times as a kid, right? And so this may or may not have affected me and my predisposition. Some folks are predisposed, I think, to anxiety. And so over the years, I've been able to kind of identify or get this phrasing even beyond when I was able to find relief, was able to process my anxiety, this wording of a sense of boundedness has been kind of a phrase that I've used, a sense of being bound. And they've typically been bound by different kinds of fears. Now, they weren't necessarily fears of tragic circumstances, and they certainly weren't quite as bad as Aunt Josephine, but fears of things like, what if they don't like me, right? Or what if I look stupid or make a fool of myself or don't sound smart but sound dumb instead? What if I make a mistake? It's better to just not say anything, right? Better to stay quiet. Better to not do. And when you repeat things enough, even in your head, they become true to you. So these fears became true for me. And it took the better part of a decade, with the grace of God through it all, with the support of family and friends, with counselors and experiences and exercising my courage muscles, that I've been able to find an unboundedness. Though the truth is that there are still things that bind me up. Sometimes some of the old bindings escape my peripheral vision, and it isn't until I'm starting to feel the tightness once again that I remember, and I must go about the task of loosening those things that bind. During a particularly difficult time in my life where I was struggling in my job and with my vocation, I participated in what the Quakers, the Friends, call a clearness committee. And this is simply a group of persons, and it's done in confidentiality. Mine was done with brothers, clergy brothers and sisters, and the task is, the idea is to come in with something that you're seeking clarity on. And there was a phrase that during this clearness committee time kind of arose out of that time. The idea of being bound came up. But the phrase that also came up was time to come alive. And so I actually have a little canvas in my house that a while back I painted on there, time to come alive. I'll look at it every once in a while. And as I've meditated on this passage of Matthew that I just read you, verse 4 kept jumping out at me. In the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version, the wording for verse 4 says, "For fear of the angel, the guards shook and became like dead men." They became like dead men. They didn't actually die. They weren't dead, but they were so afraid that it was like they were dead. They were crippled, they were bound, they were incapacitated. Stanley Hauerwas writes about this passage and he says, confronted by the blinding light of this fearsome angel, the guards who had been posted to ensure that nothing would happen to Jesus' body were so gripped by fear that they shook and became like dead men. That they became like dead men indicates the transformation that Jesus' resurrection has effected. Those who had thought they were alive now discover that what they took for life is death. Jesus' resurrection creates a life freed from the death that grips our everyday lives. This is life reborn, revealing to us how death has determined our living, and yet it is possible, and yet it is possible to remain dead, to live as dead men, as the behavior of these guards will make clear. The guards are frightened to death, but the angel tells Mary, Magdalene and Mary, that they don't need to be afraid. The angel says, I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised as he said. Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead, and indeed he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. This is my message to you. This speech that the angel gives is the whole gospel. Do not be afraid. Jesus has made it possible to live unafraid. Jesus has made it possible to live unafraid. In the resurrection, what is there to fear, the psalmist asks. The Lord is with me, I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Now the Marys were afraid, understandably. I mean, gosh, this is like a tremendous scene. Like they're there, and there's an earthquake, an angel with like lightning, lights come down and moves a rock. I mean, it would weird it if they weren't afraid, right? But their fear had an equal amount of joy at that point, which had made all of the difference. Jesus had called his followers already to a life of resurrection, to be a people of Easter that no matter what's going on, even in the midst of certain amounts of fear, that there is hope and joy that is available. They leave the tomb in awe, knowing that they are now participants in the kingdom of God. The fear they have as they leave the tomb is the fear that protects them from the fears that would have us deny the resurrection. The fear and joy that possesses their lives saves them from the fears derived from the attempt to create lives of security in the face of death. The fear and joy they now experience is that made possible by the resurrection. And so as I've been sitting with this text, thinking of they were so afraid they were like dead men, and thinking of the times where because of fear I have been too living as though dead, I ask myself and all of us this morning, what are the fears that bind you still? That keep you from living a life of resurrection? Maybe it's the fear of death itself. Maybe it's the fear of loss. Maybe it's the fear of insecurity. I mean, you can fear lots of things. But are they such that they bind us and keep us from living? What are the fears that bind our church? The fears that may bind our denomination or the capital C church? What might be the fears that bind our country and different countries in the world that make us live as bound people? People bound and in graves. People who act as though they were alive, but truly they're not. And these could be things, these things that bind us could be things that were good at some point and have died. And yet we insist on carrying corpses with us. Or they could be things that have forever kept us from living fully and freely into a life of fullness and hope. Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised as he said. Come and look at the place where he was placed. He's not there. He has risen from the dead. This Easter, we are invited to come and look and find new life as well in the resurrection of Jesus. May it be so.